The Chimera Ant is a masterclass in exploring side characters. It gives us this greater cast, filling up the arc. And as there's like 60 episodes, we really get a deep dive into these guys. And they show us how even the smallest fish can move the tide of such a big battle. These are the side characters that help the Chimera Ant arc become a masterpiece. And of course, you know, spoiler warnings. The heart of the side characters comes in the Chimera Ant extermination team, as well as those invading the palace. Morel is a huge smoke manipulating Nen user. He works as a squad leader under Netero as well. Him and Knov, or Knov, are the brains behind this palace invasion, and are some of the best supporting characters. But we can talk about them later, because this crazy green-haired guy is up first. Knuckle is one of Morel's students. At a first glance, you'd think he's like this loud-mouthed and clumsy character. You know, the classic delinquent, think JoJo's Part 4. But as the story unfolds, we see his true self, and that he's actually really soft-hearted. He overflows with this crazy optimism, and even his Nen technique reflects this. Let's actually talk about that real quick. His Nen technique is called APR, and basically, to be fair, it's not basic. With this technique, he can give his opponents some of his Nen, but the catch is, this Nen he gives gets given interest on top of it. A 10% increase every 10 seconds. This Nen number can increase if Knuckle punches them, and the Nen can be given back to him if the opponent punches him. Once the interest catches up with the opponent's Nen capacity, they're forced into Zetsu, basically a state of no Nen, for like 30 days. This neutralizes the opponent without actually like properly harming them or killing them. This shows our boy Knuckles' humanity, his heart. He cares, and of course he doesn't like to kill. This is also reflected right before the palace invasion, where he, in his like crazy, stupid, almost delusional optimism, believes that the king must have a heart, which we do find out later he does. He's a main part of this palace invasion, and speaking of that, let's set things up, with the man working behind the scenes. It's Morel's sidekick, Knov, and we've got to talk about him. He's one of the most fascinating cases in the entire arc. When we first see him, he's this composed, intelligent fighter with one of the most broken abilities in the series, called Fourth Dimensional Mansion, which allows for basically instant teleportation. Obviously this makes him a key part of the invasion, so when he's having a look earlier on, sneaking around through the ant nest, he becomes one of the first humans to encounter a royal guard. And this actually breaks him. He doesn't die, you know, Pito doesn't get him like she got Kite. But mentally, this boy's checked out. Fear literally rushes through him, and unfortunately, it never leaves. He understands that he's got limits, and Pito made him feel so insignificant, he literally never returns to the battlefield. He still helps behind closed doors, with his grey hair, and later, you know, he's bald, losing it to stress. His character is kind of sad because, you know, he never really gets this second chance, and is Togashi's brutal reminder that not everyone in this world is as batshit crazy as Gon, or as ready to fight as Killua, or as unshakable as Morel. Morel is top 3 side characters undoubtedly in this arc. His experience and leadership is so crucial, and his Nen technique has outplayed so many of the ants. This technique is super versatile, illusions, area control, and even binding the enemies with this smoke. It's a perfect fit for someone who approaches battles like a game of chess, you know, he thinks so many moves ahead, ha ha ha, little genius. I mean, his fight versus Chitu, you know, he wraps his smoke all the way around his domain to touch Chitu. That shit was so badass. And it reflects him as a character, his high IQ, patient, tactical way of fighting. Morel embodies this ideology of strategy over power, and humbles the ants through this. He's always thinking of something. I mean, his fight versus Leo was the fight that made me love him as a character so much. Leo is the lion, Chimera Ant, or tiger, one of the two. He's cocky, as most of the ants are, so Morel plays into this fact. When Leo, with his surfboard, floods the battlefield, he assumes Morel's smoke is just going to be nullified because obviously water versus smoke. You know, a few swings, a few misses before Morel is dragged deep underwater. Oh no, how's Morel going to survive this one? Poison. This guy breathed out so much carbon dioxide from the air from his like inner lungs at such a ridiculously high percentage, Leo passed out and he drowned in his own waves. Stupidly brutal, cold, collected, just like usual. Now let's talk about my favourite Chimera Ants in this arc. We've got both Meloron and Colt, with 2 other Chimera Ants that I'll talk about later. These 2 guys play 2 different roles, but I like them both equally. I mean, if I had to give an edge, I'd probably say the chameleon guy, because like when I was younger, chameleons were my favourite animal, bruh. And to be fair, they still are. So let's start with him, Meloron. This geezer has the coolest Nen ability. I know I say this for like every single Nen ability. This guy's one is actually goated. When he holds his breath, he becomes completely invisible. Even N can't help detect him. He's a pillar of strategy and a support unit for the team, which is all thanks to this guy's other Nen ability, which is God's Accomplice. This lets him make other people invisible alongside him, as long as he holds his breath during this time. And God's Accomplice has saved both Knuckle and Killua from Yuppie, as well as making Morel invisible just as Yuppie was going to deal a final blow to him. His ability was really one that fascinated me, and I really hope we see him in future arcs. Inshallah he's there, because he was such a good support character in this arc. I'm sure he'd carry, both literally and metaphorically, the characters in future arcs as well. Togashi, he's a writer. He's masterful at writing, and he makes many characters that really kind of make you question your morals. Like, at this point, I don't know who to side for. Do I side for the Chimera Ants, or do I side for the humans? Because some Chimera Ants I don't want to see die, and some humans, well, you know. A strong case for Togashi's masterful writing is Colt. He's an OG to the Chimera Ants, and a loyal squadron leader. Plus, this guy was like the right-hand man for the Queen for her entire birth progress. He was the first Chimera Ant that, like, really stood out to me, and I remember seeing him and thinking, like, what? This guy acts strangely human. I mean, we saw the backstory for how he became an ant, which was disgusting. It was absolutely gruesome. It was almost like unnecessary violence, but it was all part of the plot. It was him and his sister getting eaten by the ants. However, gruesome and gore aside, this background really adds some empathy to this character, and it kind of explains why he's so moral. Unlike some of these Chimera Ants, he doesn't lose his shit and go crazy, like just killing everyone. He kind of backs away from his animalistic role as a predator. At the end of this arc, we see him playing with a baby the Queen gave to him, which we later find out is, crazily enough, the reincarnate of Kite. He's a character that really shines in the loyalty department. And again, he's not the most powerful by any means. He's one of the most developed Chimera Ants in the entire series. Please let me know in the comments your favourite side characters in this arc, and why they are, like, your favourite. I'm interested to hear all your unique opinions, because I've got a unique opinion of my own. If it weren't for these side characters, the arc just wouldn't be as amazing as it is. They had so much depth, they seasoned the story with a much needed sauce, a much needed spice, you know, a unique blend of deep and interesting characters. If they weren't here, I don't think I could rank this arc as highly as I do. Now let's get back to Knuckle before I talk about the most important side character. Knuckle got placed in this impossible situation. Okay, so imagine this. The most powerful opponent you've ever faced, and probably will ever face, is right next to you. He's literally a slither away from being beaten. But there is obviously a catch. Your mentor, the man who raised you through thick and thin to make you the man that you are right now, is about to die. This is the situation Knucklebine is in. He was literally about to make Yuppie go bankrupt, but his options were this: keep his Nen ability on, but risk Morel's life, or remove it from Yuppie and save Morel. But obviously you lose the fight and you give Yuppie back pretty much all of his power. Now, I knew Knuckles' decision before he made it. This guy's big-hearted, and he couldn't let his mentor go down, so of course he saved him. I remember thinking, like, big man, what are you doing? But obviously, in retrospective, I was like kind of cringing when he did it. I knew he was going to do it, but I understand it now. I understand. And we can only really be grateful that Yuppie let him live. You know, major development from this Chimera Ant, by the way. Because now we get to see an amazing character living another day. Now for the worst, but on the same hand, the absolute best of the Royal Guards, in terms of characters. Not in terms of strength, but in terms of intriguing characters. This guy is a conniving little guy. He's one that doesn't really rely on strength, and he's probably the weakest of the 3 Royal Guards. He's absolutely moved mountains in this story. He's obsessed with the king, and, you know, he's easily the most loyal. His Nen ability, or just ability in general, to split himself into clones, shows his like focus on like being deceptive and controlling. And, you know, can represent this guy's broken mind. Especially when everyone witnesses Meloron change and like develop a heart for Komugi. Poof just loses it. The king is evolving past Poof's ideology and breaks Poof, at least like mentally. He dies, and even when he's dying, he still thinks he's in the right. He still thinks the king should have never grown a heart in the first place. His downfall wasn't because of his strength or strategy, but it was because he couldn't accept change. He tried to manipulate fate. At the end of the day, fate aired him. Fate ignored him. Now, why was Poof so mad? The king changing, of course. You got it right. Now why did the king change? Komugi, a blind little girl that plays Meloron in this game called Gungi. Now she's of course some grandmaster, like, you know, them little cheeky kids who are like 3 years old and like grandmasters at chess. She's literally like that for this Gungi game. Of course she beats him with absolute ease, humbling this all-powerful Meloron. And when he threatens to kill her, she kind of just accepts it and just says, yo, I'm sorry. Which makes Meloron question his own beliefs about power and worth. Eventually, this geezer grows to admire Komugi and forms his first ever human connection. I mean, we can literally see this when Zeno's like rain of arrows was happening. Meloron was demanding her safety and ordered Pito to heal her, proving to us his commitment to being with this girl. Their relationship is the heart and soul of the Chimera Ant. And in a story filled with brutal fights, you know, war, strategy, existential dread, Komugi and Meloron's bond is quiet but contrasting as well. In the end, as they sit together in their final moments after Meloron's been hit by this poor man's rose, we see them play one last game of Gungi. And we understand what this arc was actually about. It wasn't about the power, and even though that was cool, it wasn't about it. It wasn't about the war, it wasn't about the damage dealt. It was about humanity. Humanity in Chimera Ants. Humanity in people. How far humanity would go to kill these Chimera Ants. It was all about humanity. I mean, even in the face of death, even in a world filled with monsters, this kindness, connection, and understanding still had a ridiculous amount of meaning and just purpose. And that's why Komugi, you know, a simple blind girl, is the most important character in Hunter x Hunter. The Chimera Ant arc isn't just a story about hunters versus monsters, about predators versus prey. It's a story about people, and progress, and change. Now, I know you'd love to watch my Greed Island summary or my York New summary, so I'm going to leave them on the screen right now. Subscribe, of course, and hit the bell notification. We've got some bangers on the way. And leave in the comments what your favourite Hunter x Hunter characters is and why. Now, muchos gracias. Toodle pip.